In the vast wilderness, where the rivers ran wild and the forests stretched endlessly beyond the horizon, two towns stood side by side, Elder and Varden. More than just neighbors, they were twin souls in the great expanse, thriving as one. There, people shared their harvests, fought their enemies together, and celebrated life's joys as if they were one great family. There was no border between them, only a well-trodden path where merchants from Elder brought their finest grains and artisans from Varden traded their elegant crafts. The sound of laughter always filled the air, and at night, the town's fires burned like twin beacons under the same sky. Elder and Varden were inseparable, brothers, bonded by time and trust. Their kings, Roderick of Elder and Hadrian of Varden, had grown up as dear friends, their fates intertwined since childhood. It was their greatest wish that their sons, Prince Aldric of Elder and Prince Selim of Varden, would continue this legacy of brotherhood. And for a time that wish came true. Aldric and Selim were inseparable. They trained together in swordplay, their wooden blades clashing in friendly duels before they could even lift real steel. They hunted deep in the wilderness, racing through the trees, laughing breathlessly as they chased after stags and wild hares. They made oaths beneath the starlit sky that no matter what, their bond would never break. But fate was a cruel mistress, one that knew no loyalty. One fateful day, as Aldric rode through the marketplace of Varden, he saw her, Elira. She was unlike any maiden he had ever seen, a vision of grace and beauty. Her golden hair glowed in the afternoon sun, her voice a melody that danced through the air. As she moved through the bustling crowd, the people seemed drawn to her. Children ran to her with smiles, merchants greeted her with warmth. There was something about her, something that pulled at his soul, as though the universe itself had conspired for him to see her in that moment. His heart pounded. Without hesitation, he approached her, his voice steady, yet his pulse raced.
"My lady, I am Aldric of Elder."
Elira turned to him, and when she smiled, it was as if the very air around them shimmered.
"I know who you are, my prince,"
she said with a playful tilt of her head. In that instant, Aldric knew this was love. And when he confessed his admiration, she listened, her cheeks flushed, her eyes alight with something warm and soft. And then, with a gentle nod, she accepted. But across the town, unseen and unheard, another heart shattered. Prince Selim had loved Elira for as long as he could remember. From the moment they were children, he had watched her grow into the woman she was now. He had loved her laughter, her kindness, the way she treated even the lowliest beggar as an equal. But Selim had waited. He had wanted the moment to be perfect, the timing right. Now, that moment would never come. The news struck Selim like a sword to the chest. He had trusted Aldric with his life, had seen him as a brother, and yet Aldric had unknowingly stolen the one thing he held most dear. That night, Selim stood alone in the quiet of the Varden Palace gardens, his fists clenched as he stared at the stars. How could Aldric not have known? How could fate be so cruel? The next morning, the air in Varden was different. People whispered. The tension was a slow, creeping storm, threatening to break. And when Selim and Aldric's eyes finally met again, the warmth between them had turned to ice. For the first time in history, the bond between Elder and Varden wavered. And neither prince knew if it could ever be mended again. The air between Elder and Varden was no longer filled with songs of unity, nor with the laughter of children playing in the open fields that connected the two towns. Instead, a heavy silence lingered, a silence bred from whispers of heartbreak and betrayal. The once brotherly bond between Prince Aldric of Elder and Prince Selim of Varden had been fractured, and the people could feel the growing divide. The elders of both towns knew that if left unchecked, this rift could fester into something far worse, perhaps even war. And so, they convened in the sacred council chamber, where decisions of great importance had been made for generations. Their solution was one that would test not only the prince's strength, but their endurance, wisdom, and patience.
"They must build
Declared one of the elders in the palace them.
a home standing on the border of both towns. A home that will serve as a testament to their will and determination. When the great storm of the rainy season arrives, the house that remains standing will declare the victor.
It was a trial of skill, endurance, and fate itself. No swords would be drawn, no blood would be spilled. Instead, stone and mortar would decide the fate of love. The decree spread through both towns, and while the people welcomed it as a fair alternative to war, it did not erase the bitterness that had settled in the hearts of the two young men. Aldrich and Selim did not argue. They did not resist. They simply nodded, accepting their fate, and set to work. From the break of dawn to the dead of night, the two princes labored tirelessly. Their hands, once meant for wielding swords and guiding their people, now bore blisters from carrying stones and cutting timber. The border between Elder and Varden, once a place of unity and shared festivities, had become a battlefield of silent rivalry. Villagers from both towns gathered on either side, watching with anticipation, whispering among themselves, placing silent wagers on who would succeed. Aldrich worked with careful precision, ensuring that every stone he laid was perfectly placed, every beam strong enough to withstand the storms to come. His house was a fortress in the making, steady, structured, and deeply rooted in its foundation. Selim, however, built with sheer force and passion. He drove nails into wood with unyielding determination, working at a relentless pace, as if he could hammer away the heartache that gnawed at him. His home was grand, ambitious, its towering walls a testament to his burning desire to prove himself. Though they did not speak, their competition was evident in every brick they laid. The rivalry, once a playful bond in childhood, had now become something neither of them had ever wished for. But the tension was not lost on the people. There were no shared meals, no exchanged glances of mutual respect. Only the rhythmic sounds of construction, stone grinding against stone, hammers striking nails, the occasional grunt of exertion. The rivalry had consumed them, and with each passing day, the invisible wall between them grew taller. Until one afternoon, when the silence was broken. The sun blazed mercilessly overhead, their muscles burned with exhaustion, yet neither prince slowed their pace. Sweat dripped down their brows as they worked, but Aldrich, glancing towards Selim, suddenly paused. Something in his chest ached, not from labor, but from realization. This was not how it was supposed to be. Without thinking, he dropped his tools and took a step toward his old friend. His voice was hoarse, weighed down by something heavier than mere fatigue.
Do we have to do this?
Aldrich's words carried across the space between them.
Must we let love for one woman destroy the love and peace our people have shared for centuries?
Selim froze. His hammer hung in the air for a moment before he slowly lowered it. For the first time in weeks, he met Aldrich's gaze. The question lingered, sinking deep into his soul. And though he did not answer right away, that night, as the fires burned low and the world grew quiet, the words echoed in his mind. Could love truly be worth the cost of brotherhood? The answer, he realized, was one that only he could decide. That night, Selim lay awake beneath the vast expanse of the night sky, the flickering flames of his campfire casting restless shadows on his face. Sleep eluded him. No matter how much he willed his mind to quiet, memories stormed his thoughts. Memories of Aldrich and him as boys, laughing in the fields, training with wooden swords, making promises of brotherhood under these same stars. But now, the silence between them was thick with something heavier than exhaustion. It was resentment, disappointment, loss. The townspeople watched them, whispering in hushed voices. Some said this contest was fate's way of deciding who was the stronger prince. Others feared what would happen if one of them lost, not just the competition, but the will to remain allies. Would the loser carry bitterness in his heart? Would the bond between Elder and Varden truly survive this? And above all, Selim kept asking himself the one question he had been avoiding.
Was Zalira worth losing Aldrich for?
He had loved her for so long, had dreamed of her being by his side. But now, the ache in his chest felt different. It wasn't just heartbreak, it was grief. Grief for the friendship he was losing, for the town that now looked at Elder as a rival instead of a brother. At the same time, Aldrich sat on the unfinished frame of his house, staring at the moon's pale glow. He thought of the moment he had spoken to Alira, how her eyes had sparkled when she smiled at him. It had felt right at the time, but now he was unsure. Had he unknowingly betrayed his brother? His father had always told him that a ruler's greatest strength was not in his sword but in the bonds he forged. What good was winning Alira's love if it came at the cost of everything else? The weight of their decisions hung over them both, and neither could ignore it any longer. When dawn finally arrived, Selim made his choice. With steady steps, he walked toward Aldrich, past the half-built houses, past the curious gazes of the villagers. Aldrich turned, surprised to see him approaching. Selim inhaled deeply before speaking, his voice calm but resolute.
I cannot do this anymore.
Aldrich's brow furrowed.
What do you mean?
I mean this contest. This rivalry. This.
Selim gestured at the unfinished houses.
This madness.
He held Aldrich's gaze, his heart pounding, but his words firm.
I would rather lose Alira than lose you, my brother. I will not let love turn us into enemies.
Aldrich exhaled, as if releasing a breath he had been holding for far too long.
Nor would I, Selim.
He admitted.
Last night I asked myself, if I win, what do I truly gain? And I couldn't answer.
A quiet understanding passed between them, one that spoke of years of trust and shared history. They had fought battles together, protected each other from harm. Why had they so easily allowed love to turn them against each other? When they approached the elders, the news of their decisions spread like wildfire. The contest was over. There would be no storm to decide their fate, no house to crumble under the weight of rain and wind. Instead, the fate of love would rest where it always should have, in the hands of Alira herself. When Alira was told she was free to choose, her eyes filled with tears, not of sorrow, but of admiration. She had always loved Aldrich, for he had been the first to speak his heart to her. And now, seeing the honor in both men, she knew with certainty what her heart had already decided. She chose Aldrich. Selim bowed his head in acceptance, not with resentment, but with the peace of knowing he had not lost a friend, a brother, or the unity of their towns. And so, the bond between Elder and Varden remained unbroken.